Once upon a time, on an isolated farm, there was a very close family, the Robertsons. Sebastian, the father, Claire, the mother, and Jason and Rebecca, the two little twins. This couple wanted a quiet life far from the city, so they decided to move to a farm that belonged to Claire's grandparents. Sebastian told Claire that they were going to live the life they always wanted, but he was wrong. Another family who lived in that house expected the same and they never came back. Everything was perfect there: trees, an orchard, fresh air, a big space, a beautiful house. The land was good for farming. Too good to be true because on other farms it was very difficult for something to grow. But they were not worried. What a serious mistake.
A month ago, the Robertsons moved into the Clare grandparents' farm. What happened to Grandpa and Grandma, Mommy? Asked Jason.
They are no longer with us, dear.
Answered Claire. The kid walked away while the father asked, didn't they disappear?
The police report said that they had died from old age, though I never had the chance to bury them.
The conversation stopped there as Rebecca screamed from the other side of the room. Claire and Sebastian ran to their daughter. She was mumbling nonsense. Rebecca, tell us what's going on, said Sebastian as he shook her. Rebecca barely lifted her arm and pointed to the outside void and said,
Jason.
as she passed out. The father went after his son, who was about to get lost in the woods. Claire remained at the door, worried about her daughter, who didn't seem to respond to her desperate calls. Frightened, she took the phone in an attempt to call an ambulance. But on the other side of the phone, there was no answer, no beeping. Whispers calling for her with sinister tone took over the torturous silence. She hung up as her heart pumped as it was going to get out of her chest. Suddenly, she heard footsteps from the entrance. Honey, I'm back!
Sebastian, what's going?
But there was no Sebastian anymore.
What was once a lovely father, now had his 12-year-old son beaten to death in his arms. His next victim was her beloved wife. It's at this moment, when Claire was being beaten to death, that the words of her husband came to her mind.
You know, darling, the house is cool and all, but don't you feel some bad odor here?
She can't remember what she answered back then.
Every time we came here when we started dating, there was this atrocious smell. I really don't like it.
The property had been sealed by forensics. The lifeless bodies of the family lay on the porch of the house. It was a disastrous end for the Robertsons. But it is not uncommon for these events to happen again with every family that stays at the farm. What no one knew was that the dwelling was built on top of a mercury deposit. Prolonged high exposure to metallic mercury gases primarily affects health when inhaled as a vapor that can be absorbed into the lungs. It causes tremors, emotional changes, disturbances in sensation, and, on extreme occasions, causes hallucinations.